guys, welcome back to this tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to discuss another interview question. So the question is how you can expose your Apex class as a web service. So before we answer this question, let's understand what is the reason to expose your Apex class as a web service. So the reason is so that the external application can access your code. That is the reason we expose our Apex class as a web service. Now, for example, a lot of time you might have seen that you are using in some of the websites or web pages, they have a news reports going on the side or weather reports showing on the side of the website. That doesn't mean that they have written the codes for or they have rewritten everything for the weather channel or they have rewritten everything for the news channel and stuff like that. All they are doing is they are using external web services. So they are using, let's say, the Google weather service or the Google map service to embed the map functionality on their website or web page. So they are not rewriting the code. All they are doing is they are accessing the external web services. So you can expose your Apex class and methods so that the external application or third-party application can access your code. Now, there are two ways to expose your Apex class as a web service. One way is either using the REST. The second way is the SOAP. So these are the two ways you can expose your Apex class. Now, what is the difference between these two? So REST stands for representational state transfer. And this way uses the HTTP protocol. It's more simple to write. SOAP stands for Simple Object Access Protocol. So these are the two ways in which you can expose your Apex class method. So either you can expose it as REST service or you can expose them as a SOAP service. So now how you can expose as a class as a REST service. So in order to expose your class as a REST service so that the external application can access your code, the first point you need to remember is you need to define the class as global. So you have to make your class as global so that the external application should be able to access it. You cannot have the class as private and make it as a web service. No, the class has to be global. The second thing is the methods of that class that you are exposing. They should also be global and static. So this is another important thing. The methods, all the methods should be global and static. The class should be global. Then you can use the annotations to the class and methods. So for example, in this case, the class, the Apex class that we are exposing as a web service is this is the name of the class. And as per the rules, the class has to be defined global. So you can see here there is a global keyword they are using and so they have marked the class as global. Then the annotations that they used is the @rest resource annotation. And then there is another annotation that using is @HTTP get. So as I told you, REST goes over the HTTP protocols. So it has the same methods that are available in the HTTP, like the get method, post method, put method, delete method, etc. and what each of the methods are doing. We'll talk about them in a minute. But this is another annotation you can see at the rate HTTP get that is used for the method. So as per the rule for the REST service, the method has to be global and static. So you can see here, you are using the keyword global and static, and the name of the method is get record, and it returns you the record of the type account. The next annotation that you see for the class is at the rate rest resource. So basically you're telling that, hey, this is a resource, this is a web service, and in order to access this web service, what will happen is if you are using this URL, if there is a slash account in the URL, then this is the point it's going to come. So if through a REST client you are looking for, or you are hitting this URL with the slash account, then this is the place that the request will come to. So this is how you expose your class as a REST service. So find the class name and use the global keyword with the class. All the methods that are defined in the class has to be global and static. And the annotations that they are using is at the rate REST resource and then as HTTP get. So as the HTTP get means if you are doing a get request from your REST client, if you are doing a get request and the request has this URL mapping of slash account, then this is the method that will be invoked. So why do we need this URL? See, there might be multiple resources, right? There might be, if you're trying to fetch an account record, there's a resource. There might be multiple resources. So which each resource has a unique identifier. So this is a resource. So if you want to access this resource, you have to use this slash account in the URL. So this is the resource that will be invoked. If you are looking for, let's say, case, then there might be another resource which has this slash case and whatever. So there's every resource on the web has a unique identifier that is also called URI, that is called unique resource identifier. Every resource will have its own identifier. So that's why it tells you, hey, if I am using, if through the REST client, if I am in request for slash account slash whatever, then this is the resource that will be invoked. So you can see here in the slash service apex rest slash account. So when you are looking for this one, then this is where the call will come. And based upon what your kind of method you are looking for, it is a get request, is it a post request, is it is a batch request, delete request, corresponding method will be called. So this is how you expose your class as a REST service. So I repeat one more time. The reason we expose the class method as web service is because we want them to be accessed by the external applications. Two ways of doing it. So one way is either by using the REST, or the second one way is the SOAP. So there are two ways to do that. Now, how you can expose your class as a REST web service? So there are some rules that you need to follow in order to expose your class as a REST web service. One is you have to make sure that the class has the keyword global and all the methods are global and static. And then you are going to use some annotations for the resource mapping and stuff. And we are also going to do an example. Don't worry about it. I'm just going to give an overview which you can speak in front of your interviewer if this question arises. Now, as I told you This REST work with the HTTP protocol. So it has the same methods that are available in the HTTP. So if you are using @HTTP get, in the previous example, you have seen on the method itself, we have this HTTP get. That means it a get request. So @HTTP get is basically a read action. If you are just reading or if you are retrieving the records, this is the method that should be called @HTTP get. It is used to retrieve or read the records from the Salesforce database. If you are creating a record or if you are adding a new account or if you are creating a new records, then another annotation that you have to use is @HTTP post. That represent that it's a create action, you are creating a new record. Then the third annotation you have is HTTP delete, which represent a delete action. So if you are making a delete request for this URL, means you are trying to delete a record. So this is going to be delete the record. Then HTTP put, it's a upsert operation, means it's going to either an update or an insert. So this particular annotation is used to update an existing record or create new records. So this is another annotation that you can use on a method. If let's say for this URL, if you are making a post request, then the method which has this @post annotation on it, that is what is invoked. If you are making a delete request for this URL, then this particular method which has the @HTTP delete annotation will be called. Then you have is the HTTP patch. It's an update operation, typically used to update the fields in the existing records. So if you want to update an existing record, this is the way to do this. So if they ask you what is the difference between a post method and a patch method, which is very common. If they ask you what is the difference between a post and a patch, you can always say that post was used to create a record. It does not update the existing record. It is used to create new records. Whereas the patch method is used to update the fields on the existing records. So that is what the patch method is for. What is the difference between a put and a patch method? A put method will see if the record exists. If it exists, then it will do an update operation. If the records does not exist, then it will create a new record. Whereas the HTTP patch, it's an update operation, means it will update only fields on the existing records. So this is part of the REST web services. So we learned how to expose your class as a REST web service. These are the HTTP methods because REST works over HTTP protocol and it has the same methods that are available in the HTTP. So you have a get method, post method, put method, delete method, and a patch method. Now the next we have is how can you expose a class using a SOAP service. So how can you do that? So in order to expose your class as a SOAP service, you have to use the global with your class, just like you do it for the REST web service. You have to use define your class as a global. You have to use this global keyword and this is the class name. Then add the web service keyword and the static definition modifier to each method you want to expose. The second point that you need to remember is in the previous case, In the case of the REST web service, we were adding global and static to the method. But in this case, if you are exposing a class as a web service, then you have to use this web service keyword and this static keyword. So you have to use both of this for your methods. Then it's the same method get record. It takes one parameter and returns you the type account. So this is how you can expose a class using a SOAP service. So you make the class global and all the methods inside of the class will be marked as static and with the keyword web service. So this is the way you expose your class as a SOAP service. So in the next tutorial, we are going to do an example to illustrate how can you expose your class as a REST service and how can you invoke the methods of that web service that you just created. So how to do that? We will take a look in that next tutorial. So I will see you in the next tutorial. Till then, have a good day. Bye.